Welcome to Lost Tracks. It's an interview program where we talk about the stories of musicians, their gear, performing, and the music business. Many of those stories come from the Portland music scene, and Lost Tracks are the stories that don't necessarily make the front page, but the people we talk with are real. You know them as your local musicians, your friends, business people. They have interesting stories, and we're going to share those stories with you. Our guest is Chris Timberlake, and Chris is the lead singer in Beadhead and has a very interesting musical background. Welcome, Chris. How's it going?
It's going great, Steve. Thanks for having me.
All right. So let's just get right into it. Let's introduce you to our audience. Tell me about yourself and where you're from and all that stuff.
Okay. Well, I'm originally from Erie, Pennsylvania, tiny little, well, I guess it's not that tiny anymore, but it seemed like it growing up. Town on the lake. We used to call it the Mistake by the Lake, dreary Erie, the Mistake by the Lake. I moved to Phoenix, Arizona when I was 15, so my dad could find work. And then I was there for way too long. Had its great times, and there's a lot of lovely people there. But I moved to the Portland area in 2012. So, right. And I am married, and I have two great kids, Miles, who has just turned 14 this last month, and my daughter Vivian, who is 12 and will turn 13 in March.
Great ages. So,
yes, great ages.
So, what or who inspired you to be a musician?
Well, first and foremost, it was my dad. As a young kid, we, as a family, would spend our weekends playing albums, even 8 tracks. That dates me quite a bit, but mostly albums. And my father would sing, and then I would sing and take turns, and then we would also play our kitchen utensils. So we were rotating between being a drummer on the back of the Lazy Boy sofa and playing the air guitar on our spatulas, and that was great. So that was part of what made me love music, right? So there was that, and then additionally, some great artists, Karen Carpenter, first and foremost, Barbara Streisand, Donna Summer, Patti Smythe in the 80s from Scandal, Carole King, lots of predominantly great women, female singers that I loved. Also loved the Bee Gees as well, all of their harmonies and a lot of that great stuff. The 70s was great music. So
that was quite a diverse group.
Yeah.
So you made it to Arizona. What was the music scene like there?
Well, I would have to say the music scene was tough, at least at the time that I was playing there. When just before I had really started playing and graduated high school and was actually making music in a band, that was right around the time the Gin Blossoms had just launched from there. The Refreshments had launched from there, a couple of other great bands as well. And then the scene sort of, dried up a little bit. And part of it was, the Tempe area where ASU was the big, just the part of town where everybody went. And there was a great bar called Long Wong's, and there were just a lot of venues that supported local music. And then that started drying up. The corporate stores came in and really did a makeover of the area, and it just became less and less friendly for live music. And the Phoenix area has such a huge sprawl element to it that playing on one side of town could mean an hour's drive for your fans. And so a lot of times it was just difficult to get people to come out. And then a lot of places were just corporate owned. So it was slim pickings. I mean, I had some great times at some great gigs, primarily in Tempe, but it was not an easy scene. It was not an easy scene in that sense.
what kind of music were you doing there?
Well, initially I started with a band named Siren, and we were doing alternative rock. And it was a lot of fun. It was basically what we felt the pulse was and what we liked doing at the time. And then over time, that sort of migrated. And after many years of doing that, I hooked up with a co-writer, and he and I began doing some writing, and the band Bulletproof Soul was born from that. And that actually steered me into a direction of more adult contemporary, but sort of along the lines of Sade and Sarah McLachlan, sort of R&B vibe, that kind of thing. And so I did most of my, the last bit of original writing I did was with that project.
It's interesting evolution. So you have some songs in the MTV library. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So when I was with Siren, we had an album out, and we had just I had known a friend who had also had a couple of his tunes or an album, I think, placed into the MTV library. And so we'd just been putting things out. And additionally, we had recently won the Rolling Rock Battle of the Bands in the Phoenix area, which was great. And shortly thereafter, I got a phone call from someone saying that they were with MTV and that they had heard some of the tracks from the album and that they were interested in adding the album to their library, to the MTV library, for the television show Made, which was just kind of coming out or had just come out at the time. And I thought it was a crank call. I thought they were full of it. And they asked me for my fax number so they could send me a contract. And I said, I don't have a fax machine. I was, 20, however old I was, 22, 23, and I didn't have anything. And so I gave them my stepfather's fax number, and I just hung up, thought, whatever. And about 10 minutes later, my phone rang, and it was my stepfather saying, I just had a big, long fax come through, and it's from MTV. And I was dumbfounded. I couldn't believe it. So it's in their roster, and the songs, a couple of the songs were played on a couple of different episodes of Made, and I've heard that they've popped up in other places. I haven't been on there to hear it, but that was quite a while ago. But it was great. That was a pretty great experience. Yeah, and they still have it. So who knows what they're doing with it?
Well, that's one of those snapshots in being famous. So fast forward, it's 2022. And, I guess you said you moved here about 10 years ago to Portland. And what took you so long to emerge in the music scene here?
Well, when I first moved here, I was still working on finishing up a project for the first couple of years that I was here with Bulletproof Soul. We were completing the album Porcelain. Robert Lang, my co-writer, and we were working with Mike Pila, who is Sade's producer, on one of the tracks of that album, the title track. And so we spent all this time working on that. And then sort of, life and kids. And, we had been trying to keep that writing going long distance with him in Phoenix and myself here. And then it kind of slowed down, and we would still hook up on different things. And it just sort of got away from me. And then COVID hit. And just before COVID hit, I had thought, I'm going to put together a yacht rock band because Brilliant. It's the music that I love, right? So I was just sort of like, what can I do to, I don't know, get myself engaged in this environment in Portland's music scene? And anyway, so, and then literally I was just lining up musicians for it, and COVID, and then that stopped. And then a friend saw an ad that had been placed by Beadhead on one of the Facebook pages saying they were looking for a vocalist for a yacht rock band. And she tagged me in that post, and I thought, who knows what'll happen? And the rest is history. So
yeah. So that's
I just had time off between work and kids.
totally understand. I think we've all experienced that. So what do you think of Portland's music scene?
I think it's incredibly active. I'm sure there are Portland musicians right now that would want to throttle me for saying that, given what the last couple of years have done to everyone. But at least prior to that, I know it to be, or understood it to be, a very active scene. I remember one of the first steps I took toward meeting some musicians. I met through a friend, a bass player, super talented guy. Went out to a show to see him play. There's amazing alignment or array of these musicians that were just killing it in the basement of this club in the middle of nowhere. It was just so great. And I started talking to the musicians there that night, and it was clear that all of them were involved in 10, 12 different projects. Yeah. And so this idea that I was going to somehow piece it together was like, wait, what? Like everybody was so busy. They were so busy. And people that can play were they were doing all right, at least as far as having lots of space to play, lots of places to play. I mean, this is a town that supports art. That's pretty clear. And so, yeah, I think it's a great scene, and I really hope it gets back to where it was before the pandemic.
Well, we're all trying. So, I know, yeah. so, obviously it's the elusive gig. What describe the best gig you ever had? What's that like?
So the best gig I ever had is, I'd be foolish to not say it was the Whiskey A Go-Go in Los Angeles. Just because everything about it felt like a dream, like a great musician's dream. It was me and my 4 guy bandmates getting in our cars and driving from Phoenix to LA and selling tickets, in advance. We had a couple folks that, came over as well, but we played to a great room. I was backstage the whole time, backstage at the Whiskey A Go-Go. So I was sitting in the green room, which, by the way, is not green, where, the Doors sat and Janis Joplin sat and a million other, incredible musicians have sat pre-show. And it was really, really cool. It was really cool. And the stage was great and the sound was great. And it was just definitely a once in a lifetime opportunity that I stood underneath the marquee, and my band's name was up there, Siren, underneath the marquee. So it's great. It was a great experience for sure.
So that's the best one. What's not the worst one, but what's the weirdest gig that you think you ever did?
Well, okay. I think probably the weirdest gig I ever did was there was a bar called I want to say it was called, I'm shocked that I don't know definitively what it was. I think it was called okay, it was the Big Fish Pub. The Big Fish Pub was completely black on the inside, black stage, black walls, black bar, black everything, just spray painted flat black, and smelled really bad. And we sang behind chain link fence. So that was probably definitively, but there, even the, sometimes it seems like, at least as for myself as a musician, a bad gig is when you personally suck. Right. Yeah. I mean, that's when you don't bring it. You're not doing what you need to do for whatever reason. And when you're in the middle of those gigs, those are the ones that hurt, because you don't feel great. You're not enjoying it the way that you normally would. But as far as just, a strange and weird gig, that was definitely at the top of that for sure. Yeah.
So going from weird to yacht rock. I mean, what's your take on yacht rock, and how is Beadhead helping you fulfill that inner yacht rock in you?
Ah, well, growing up, born in 1970, my earliest childhood memories are those songs. It's being in the car, listening to the radio, having it play in the house. The town that I grew up in was on the lake, like I said, and there was it's called the Peninsula, and so many a summer day was spent on the beach. And so those songs were everything. There's this amazing melodic and intricate quality to the musicianship that is going on there. It's this great combination of things, from interesting guitar riffs and some of the best, drum riffs that have ever come out of anywhere came out of that time. I mean, Rosanna, and there's just so many groovy things, and loving all of that stuff and playing all of that music, as far as, on my record player, and listening to my parents sing it, or my father particularly sing it in the car. It's the music that when I sing it, I've tried to sing other cover stuff throughout the course of my life. I've had different chances to do little things like that, and even join a cover project. And because it wasn't music that I could really connect with, because I'm a songwriter at heart, it was really tough for me. But there's something about being able to sing yacht rock, because it's so much part of my core as a musician. All that's Hall & Oates, and I think I had mentioned to you once that before I would gig with all of my live original music, I warmed up to a best of Hall & Oates album. That was what I listened to in the car on the way to all the gigs. It was just, that's the stuff that feeds me. So, and turned me into the musician that I am. So that's what I think of yacht rock. I think it's compelling. I think it reaches people. I think even the stuff that feels a little slow is just moving. It's just moving. So I love it. I love it.
So that's that's looking in the rearview mirror of yacht rock. As a songwriter, if you were going to write a yacht rock song, what could we expect?
Oh wow!
And by the way, this is potentially this would be a project you and I could do.
Oh, okay. I like this. Well, I think that would not be a stretch for me. I think as a songwriter, I tend to write songs that tell stories. I always have. So I think for sure it would be something that told a story. And then also just had a lot of that. Yacht rock was about love, right? So it was a lot of different kinds of talking about, love, falling out of love, falling into love. I mean, all that stuff from Bread. And I mean, that stuff, those kind of lyrics just don't get, I don't know. I mean, they're few and far between to find. So I think you would definitely be seeing or hearing something that had some really great, rich storytelling lyrics. And then knowing these, four guys I know that play great music, play instruments beautifully, like yourselves. I think we would come up with something that was a lot of fun and really transported you somewhere. That's what I think. So
cool. Well, that'll be a fun one. So, last question: what can we let everybody know to expect from you and Beadhead at your next gig?
I think one thing that I've experienced so far with my time with Beadhead is the audience really enjoys it. And that is what I think we aim for. I know it's definitely what I aim for, is to play those songs in such a way that we honor them and that they are familiar in a way that people connect the way that they connected the first 50 times that they heard them during those times. And so it's going to provide, I want the audience to be energized and transported back to someplace groovy that they remember from that time in their life, and to hear and feel how that just sort of connects with them deep down, the way that it just always, at least the way that it does for me. And so that's my goal, is to make people feel as good hearing that music as it makes me feel singing it and performing it.
Well, so. I know that's the way the most people everybody that I've talked to have reacted as well. So I want to thank you for taking the time, Chris, and we'll have everybody experience, the Chris Timberlake experience at the next. All right, thank you.
That sounds great.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Steve.
All right.
Okay.